Hello, and welcome. Welcome once again to the Start, Scale, and Succeed podcast, the only podcast that grows with you through all 7 stages of your journey as a founder. I'm your host, Scott Ritzheimer, and there's a problem I see all the time, especially for founders who've launched their business to create freedom and impact, but instead find themselves out of one job and into 7, while getting paid a fraction of what they should. You're juggling client delivery, creating content, doing your own bookkeeping, the actual work itself, managing your calendar, writing proposals, and it just piles up and up and up. And somehow it seems to get worse every time you get a new client, to the point where you just don't know how you're going to make it all happen. And the revenue comes in, we do all the work, but then it distracts us from bringing in more revenue, and it starts this vicious cycle that can trap even the most capable of entrepreneurs. And it happens in this startup entrepreneur stage. And to help us wrestle down the alligator that is this cycle that wants to get the better of our revenue, let's call it that, is the one and only Mary Cravets, who is an award-winning client generation expert, an international speaker who helps coaches grow their business without working nights and weekends. And she's heard all the confusing and conflicting advice there is out there, and isn't surprised that most coaches struggle to establish a sustainable business. But she's here to change that. Using her methods, the majority of Mary's clients quickly increase their income by 50% or more. 50% or more. Clients range from the former CFO of Microsoft North America to coaches in their first few years of business. She's here with us today. Mary, welcome to the show. So excited to have you here.
Thanks for having me, Scott.
Fantastic. All right. So let's get started with something that I bet a lot of founders watching, coaches, service providers, founders just early in their journey. They're working harder than they did in their last job. That's just universally true. We have this idea from Instagram, I think is where it comes from. But it's like starting a business is, working 4 hours a week and then sipping 2 pina coladas, one for each hand, singing Garth Brooks songs or something like that. But it's just not the way it works. And so we'll zoom in particularly with your expertise here. You work with a lot of coaches, and these are smart, capable folks. Why do they seem to still get stuck in this do it all yourself, do everything all the time trap?
Well, you know what? First of all, they don't even necessarily know what they should be doing at all, because coming from a corporate background, coming from an academic background, there's no school for this. I work with people who have MBAs, who have marketing backgrounds, and this entrepreneurial piece of how do you do it? It's just not really taught anywhere, at not any traditional place that you would learn from, like universities and so forth. And so they come in. I think the biggest thing is that everyone thinks they should know how to do it. Mm. And why would they? You don't beat yourself up if you don't know how to knit. It's like you just don't know how to do it. Go get the skill set.
Yeah, absolutely. So let's actually start there. Let's try and, as best we can, as a big question, but let's answer that question for them. What do you need to know? Let's start specifically with coaches, because it's a little easier to define in a specific industry. But folks, I'm in this industry as well, and work with a lot of our coaches in the Scale Architects program. And one of the things that I found out pretty early is that coaching isn't coaching. It's a whole lot of stuff other than coaching. I was shocked when I started, and maybe this was your experience or you've seen others. I did less coaching my first few months of coaching than I did when I was just coaching people, for fun beforehand. So what is it? If you have a brand new coach, what do they need to do?
Yeah. The first thing they need to know is that they have to keep an eye on that vision of what they want to be doing and the impact they want to be making, but then they need to roll up their sleeves and get to work. And their number one job is enrolling clients. We get very distracted with this big picture of marketing and sales and now social media. And we see social media everywhere. So obviously that's how people get clients, right? No. So where they need to focus, the first system in the business, like the primary system, is bring in business. And coaches tend to go to what they know, like instantly. I'll ask them a question like, okay, what have you thought about growing your business? And you see them go and they look over in this place in their mind where business development is, and there's nothing there. And so they go over to where they're like, I was thinking of working on my accounting systems, because they know that. And it's fascinating. So they've got to first realize client generation is the first skill set. It's not getting more certifications. It's not necessarily even bringing in your past experiences. Client generation, first skill set. And that is where you spend your time. And actually the very, very first thing to do probably is to unlearn everything, all the assumptions that you know about sales and marketing. It's just like, no, it's not about being pushy. No, it's not about convincing people to do things they don't want to do. It's none of those things. And I think that's probably my biggest job, is like, show people you don't have to be that picture of what they fear they have to become in order to grow a business.
Yeah. You're stepping on all the sacred cows here, but certifications. Let's talk about this, because again, this is something that I definitely see in the coach world, but I see it across professional services, and then I see the pattern happening in other environments. But one of the things that I see folks struggle with is, like, being an entrepreneur is hard. Hearing no is really hard. And, trying to do this sales thing, and to whatever extent it's because you were clumsy, or to whatever extent it's just they weren't ready, it's not time, you got to know. And it hurts, right? Because especially in something like coaching, it's kind of like they're saying no to you, not your product.
Your soul.
Yeah. And it just cuts deep. So you get these folks that were and really are quite confident, but that confidence starts to take some knocks.
Yeah.
And then I think this is where the certifications thing comes into play, because we try to get more confident by becoming more competent at whatever it is, the trade that we do.
Yeah.
But what I think needs to happen, and I think this is something that you do exceptionally well, they have to become more confident by having more reps just selling and closing what they do.
Yes.
Would you agree with that?
Yeah, absolutely. And again, it's that comfort zone. People go back to what they know, the certifications, and they come by it honestly, of course, because in a corporate career and an academic career, the more certified you are, the more knowledgeable you are. Usually that's how you move up. So, with the best of intentions, these smart people, they end up going after a solution with the wrong tools. And so the reps, really important. And not just the reps, but the strategy behind it. I was talking to someone today, a prospective client, and she's like, oh, well, everything you're talking about, the relationships and getting your messaging right and doing those things, I know how to do that. She said, but how exactly? So it's this pairing, like what I have found gives coaches the reps and then the confidence is getting the strategy so specific and also feeling so natural and genuine. And then the steps so small and well-defined, they start taking those steps and the confidence doesn't really play as much of a role, because they're just like, oh, I'm going to take some steps. Oh, look, I got a positive response from someone. I didn't die when I asked someone for a referral. That's amazing. So they're getting this positive feedback, which motivates them to keep going. So it's the reps, but not, I hate hearing people say, I'd be a no collector. I'm like, please don't do that. That sounds like you're aiming for the wrong thing.
Yeah. So one of the things that you said earlier was you have to forget everything you know about sales. So again, impossibly large question in an impossibly small format podcast, but what do we need to think about sales? What's the right frame of mind to approach it as a coach or a professional services provider?
I was very fortunate. My very first trainer I ever heard, he defined sales for me, and I have taken this with me forever, and I share it now. And that is, sales is helping someone make a decision they want to or have to make. And when you, like, the processes I teach, the processes I run, for having a sales conversation, it's about taking someone through a process so they can answer the question for themselves Should they move forward? Should they invest?
Yeah. Yeah, I
So
love that.
It's a very small answer to a big question, but sales, of course, is the
excellent.
end of the process. The sales is the end. Most coaches will tell me, if I get to talk to somebody, I can usually enroll them. That's not the problem. It's how do I get all the leads coming in?
Yeah.
And so that's where clicking in the process is even more important.
Yeah. So let's go there, because there are, I mean, my inbox every day has folks that are talking about leads and appointments. And if you spend any time on social media, there's just constant onslaught of the 92,000 things you need to do to bring in clients. Is it necessary? Do you have to have, SEO and 5 social media funnels and lead magnets and all of that jazz? What do you actually need to create the sales that you need to succeed?
I usually follow along the lines of just follow the thread of what's working. Like, it's very blunt. In my second year of business, I had a total burnout. And so I had like 4 hours a week to run a business that was providing half of my household income.
Wow.
And so the only thing that could occur to me is I have to follow what's working. I can't waste time with all of these other things that are not getting me anywhere just out of pure crisis necessity. I had to pare it down. All right, how can I spend the least amount of time and get clients? And starting with what's working, I looked at what are the words that are working? What are the audiences that are working? What are the tactics that are working? Like, every single thing had to have a track record, either in my business or in the industry. In coaching, number one way that coaches get clients, through relationships. That is true of also most service-based businesses, through relationships. And by that, I mean referrals, connections, getting to the cold market through your warm market. The problem is what we see everywhere is social media, and nobody sees on my desk personal note cards and little
Right.
Starbucks cards that I send as thank yous. And guess what? I make very good money on very simple things like this.
Yeah.
But it's what's working. You follow that thread and then systemize it and be consistent.
Here's what I love about that. Most of the folks that I feel get the most confused and frustrated by the funnel world, if you will, are the ones that have absolutely no business doing it. It's so far from how they would naturally behave that the chances of them ever having success there are so low that even if they did it right, it still probably wouldn't give them what they want. And so I love this idea of following the thread of what's working. I'm wondering if you can clarify that a little bit, because I think your definition of what's working might be a little different than the average coach sitting listening. So what do you mean what's working?
Yes. And actually, this is a piece of advice I give to all coaches, because coaches tend to sit around with other coaches and bat around ideas of how to grow their business. And they say, oh, you know what worked for me? And they will talk about it, and then they'll all follow that rabbit. And so I've primed my audiences and my clients and everyone I can run into. I say, when someone says, this is working for me, ask them to tell you what that means. What do you mean it's working? Does that mean you closed a client? Or does it mean you got 486 impressions on LinkedIn? Like, what does it's working? What does it look like to them? What is it actually? Yeah. And does that working mirror what you want to get?
Yes.
And if it isn't, do not chase that rabbit.
Yes. Yes, absolutely.
Data.
Absolutely.
When I'm talking about what's working, I'm talking about data.
Yeah, and what's actually enrolling clients? Your number one job: generating revenue, enrolling new clients in your business. And we're picking on coaches a little bit here. It's low hanging fruit, but again, this really is true for entrepreneurs in general. And I would say we could zoom out and say, especially those for whom the work that they do is what's really important to them. Right? We see this in the nonprofit world as well, where honestly, if you start a nonprofit, the number one thing you need to do is generate revenue. It's exactly the same. But they're even worse at it in the sense that it's like, no, we're a nonprofit. We don't talk about money. It's like, well, good luck. So it really is something that goes so deep into the world of founders and entrepreneurs, and this idea of what's working and defining that properly, I think is so very important. It's a fantastic way of putting it. And sharing with other founders. It's just go back and listen to it. If you're listening to this and any of us, just go back and listen to it again. I'm not going to repeat it again. But Mary, there's this question that I want to make sure we have time for, because I ask all my guests. I'm interested to see what you have to say. And the question is this: what is the biggest secret that you wish wasn't a secret at all? What's that one thing you wish every founder watching or listening today knew?
What is the number one thing? You know what? I think I'm not sure I'm going to say this right, but it's about when you engage in something in your business, make sure it's doing the right job. We do things, we follow things, we habitually do things, and we don't take the time to say, is this doing the right job? People are blindly doing social media. Social media is great. Is it doing the right strategic job? You're getting up early. Is that for the right reasons? We do this for ourselves. So both on the strategic and the personal side of things, is everything in your business doing the right job? And are you owning it? And valuing yourself in all of that. I think I answered like 5 things in there, but it all wraps together our identity and our time and our outputs from what we get. Just making sure that everything is doing the right job. And you know what? It's about intentionality.
Yeah.
Like the more intentional you are, the more you feel at home in your business, the more results you get. It's worth taking the time for that intentionality of strategy and choices and values and everything in your business.
Absolutely. So, Mary, if there's a coach or a consultant listening to this, and they're in the roller coaster, they're in the thick of all of it, and they'd love someone to come and help show them what those steps are and build a strategy for their sales and revenue, how can they find out more about the work that you do? Where can they connect with you directly?
Yeah, the very easiest way is to go to my website, simplygetclients.com. The entire front page is kind of like this big arrow that is pointing to a button that says take the class. And every month I take people through this process and the components and assess what you have in your business as far as client generation, what needs help, and what is working well for you already. And from there, you get a lot of insight into that intentionality that I'm talking about.
Fantastic. Well, Mary, this conversation could have gone on for a very long time, but we like to keep it short and sweet for our listeners. Thanks so much for being on. It really was a privilege and honor having you here with us today. For those of you watching and listening, your time and attention mean the world to us. I hope you got as much out of this conversation as I know I did, and I cannot wait to see you next time. Take care.